In the last week, how many times did you lose a deal to, I just make decisions this way? Or how many times did you hear, I'm going to talk to my spouse or my business partner and get back to you, I promise? How many times did you hear, it's too expensive, or I'll just do it myself, and have to end the conversation because you didn't know how to handle it? Genuinely, think about that for a second. Pun intended. Now, multiply that number by how much average commissions you make per deal. Take the number of commissions you made last month, divide it by the number of deals. We're probably looking at thousands of dollars, not even just last month or last year, but last week alone, I would imagine. So here's the thing about objections. They're the lowest hanging fruit that you can master to make more money in sales right now. Long term, if you want to fundamentally get better at sales, it's your discovery and it's your question asking. But in your short term, if you simply learn how to navigate a conversation from a no to a yes, you will make significantly more money next week, next month. And it's far faster than mastering anything else. So in this video, I'm going to give you my course on objection handling, built from my exact framework, developed across 25,000 or so objections in 5 years and being in sales and managing teams. So by the end of this, if you implement it, train it, and drill it, you will know exactly what to say to take any no into a yes the moment that you hear it. Now, one last thing before we get into it. 99% of people watching this, according to my YouTube algorithm, will not watch to the very end. And that's exactly why if there are 100 closers in this world, only one of them makes 30K a month consistently. So do with that what you will, and let's get started.
Objections, everybody's favorite topic. For some reason, this always gets all the views on social media. And so, whatever. I try not to put too much out about it because it's just like, I don't know. But we'll see. I did some basic math just for funsies. I was like, how many objections do I think that I've actually handled? Some basic math, I came out with 25,000. So this is on sales calls. This is with team members. This is with owners when I'm managing all sorts of different stuff. So it's fun, but like it gets kind of old after a while. And so as I talk about this, you may sense a little bit of like me being bored of objections. And it's because I am. All right. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to do my best for you because I think it's still really important to learn how to handle them. But like, it's such an overused topic in sales. And so I feel like there's more important things, but this is definitely important if you're getting them as like a little bit of a Band-Aid at the end of the call. So I want you to do a quick exercise. All right. So first thing is just close your eyes. And I want you to remember the last time that you bought something significant in your life, whatever it may be. Whether it be a house, a car, a laptop, a TV, new apartment, whatever it might be. I want you to remember the last time that you bought something significant in your life. And I want you to just remember how it felt. What was going through your head, right? What was going on at the time being? Nothing too crazy. Just want you to like put yourself back in that moment, if you will, right? So go ahead and open back up your eyes and share with the group, like, what do you believe an objection is? What is your definition of an objection? Off mute.
A concern that something might not work.
There you go. That's one. What else?
A concern that's overcomeable, that comes up at the end of the call before they move forwards.
Cool. Good definition. What else?
Myron Gold says infection. It's an infection in the discovery process.
Ooh, I like it. So objections, some people define it as different things. The biggest one that I've seen like out there in the space from maybe a little bit less experienced people is objection is like a fancy way of saying no. And then what I like to kind of think about it as is, number one, if you're getting to the point of objections, right? Objections are after you already have pretty darn good levels of certainty that what you do, right, what you're selling to this person can actually help them, right? Like none of us really get to, when we talk about objections, we're talking like post price drop post pitch, at the end of the call, right? Most of us aren't going to get to objections if we feel like what we're doing isn't actually going to help them, right? Like, make sure that we're on the same page there. So you're not getting objections because this isn't going to help them. You're getting objections because they feel like this will help them. You feel like it will help them. And so it's just some sort of last minute thing coming up. I kind of like to view it as it's a little dramatic, but a cry or a request for certainty or a request for help, right? If you view it in that way, you start to come up to objections a little bit differently, right? You have a different mindset. You're coming with a different approach. So whatever your definition of the word objection is, that's going to be the ceiling on your potential to succeed pretty much in life, not just sales calls, all right? Because let's think about it this way. In life, you also get objections, right? It's not just on sales calls that people tell you no in some way, shape, or form, right? It's not just on sales calls where people know what they're supposed to do, but then don't do it, right? It's not just on sales calls where people want to say yes to something, but then there's some sort of hesitation, right? To use you guys' words, some sort of fear, some sort of rationalization, some sort of reason not to do something. And the reason is because people generally prefer saying no. The reason they prefer saying no is because it feels safe, right? It feels secure. Anybody ever watched the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey? It's a little bit older, but true Jim Carrey fans, I knew you would, Brody. My film expert in the room always. So Yes Man is a movie about this guy who basically, people around him end up talking about how often he says no. And he realizes eventually that he says no all the time. So then he goes to like this fancy, event with some sort of weird shaman or something. And they like cast this sort of spell over him, if you will, to where he has to say yes to everything. And then suddenly, by saying yes to everything, like he ends up living a pretty cool life. Some weird shit ends up happening, but in general, pretty cool life. But the reason people say no is because it's secure, right? If I ask you, are you busy tonight? Immediate inclination might be to say, yeah, I don't know, depends, right? Like what are you asking me to go and do? Or like, are you free for a couple minutes? Well, I can be, but like, not really, right? No is safe. It's cutting off all other possible external options. Whereas yes is something that is less safe. It means there's going to be some sort of status quo change generally, right? What about when you were a kid? How did you feel when people told you no? Right? And anybody with kids can come up here. Like, what were some situations where kids are told no? It doesn't even have to be about you personally, but like just in general, when are kids told no?
When they want sweets.
Okay, got it. And why are they told no by their parents?
Because it's not good for them.
There you go. So generally, like the person that's saying no has the kid's best interest at heart, right? But they're also basically saying no to the kid having the experience in some way, shape, or form in order to protect them. And so if you think about it from this frame, no is a protective mechanism, right? Does everybody see that? So it's the same thing with objections. Objections are just protective mechanisms. Now, while it's a protective mechanism, think back to the definition that I have. You can adopt it if you'd like, or you can throw it in the garbage. Doesn't matter to me. But if it is both a protective mechanism, but also a cry for help, think about how you can visualize that. Think about where else in your life like that might happen. All right. The image that comes to mind for me is maybe like a kitten, if you will, that's been separated from its family. That's like sitting in wet inside of a pipe or a drain or something, right? It's going to be angry at you for coming and trying to pull it out of the drain. It's going to be scared. It's going to be hissing, try to claw you or whatever, try to bite you. But at the same time, like it wants to not be there, right? It wants to be in a safe place with its family, etc. That's kind of how I view objections. All right. So starting to get a clear picture of what objections are. Now, let's talk about why do they happen? All right. So why do you feel like objections happen in the first place? And don't get all philosophical. Don't talk about it like from your perspective as a salesperson. Try to do this from the perspective of the person giving the objection, right? If you've ever given an objection yourself, like why do you give objections? Why do they happen? Why does your prospect give objections?
They lack clarity.
They lack clarity. Okay.
Fear.
Fear. Fear.
Fear. Yeah. Fear of what?
Unknown.
Fear of change. To get outside their
Terrified.
comfort zone. Because they're so used to it.
Yeah. So there's so many reasons that they happen, right? So, or you don't have an undergrad mentor. You guys are great. So let's get into this. So we kind of have a fairly clear picture of what they are and why they happen. Like this is nothing new to you guys. What I've found is probably the biggest problem with beginning and even intermediate salespeople is they never actually do the right things before handling the objection. So this is why I built out the CIT pre-objection framework, right? So this is before you actually handle the objection. It's what you do first. So CIT is an acronym. It stands for clarify, isolate, and tie down. All right, this is a very, very cookie cutter process that seems to work pretty much 100% of the time. Like I don't know that I've ever come up against a time where this hasn't worked. The whole point of this CIT framework is to get to what the real objection is, isolate it from everything else, and tie down that aside from that objection, like they feel like everything works, that they feel good about it, they feel certain, like everything else is good except for this one thing. All right. Anybody who's ever troubleshooted anything before, whether it be tech issues, whether it be sales process issues, whether it be because you got an objection on the call and you're trying to find the root of it, right? Troubleshooting as an actual process comes down to one thing, and it is isolating the problem, right? Take you back to my audio engineering days. I used to mix front of house, do mastering projects, all sorts of stuff. But like if I was doing a concert and I was mixing front of house and there's an issue somewhere, I would have to isolate all these different places that the issue could be coming from and then find the one spot that the issue is coming from in order to fix it, right? Because it could come from 100 different areas. It could be literally just a cable broke. It could be a power cord was unplugged. It could be, you know, the tweeter on this speaker was out, right? It could be a million different things. So finding what it is first is really the biggest issue that I see with salespeople, right? So let's get down how to do it. Clarify. The clarification process should always be open-ended, never binary, and curiosity-led. This is the part of the CIT framework that will probably take the longest, 9 times out of 10, right? So here are some example clarifying questions. What do you mean by blank is my favorite one. I'll use it 9 times out of 10, right? Give one objection in the chat. All right, too expensive. What do you mean by it's too expensive? A lot of money. What do you mean it's a lot of money? Keep them coming. Say they want to think about it. What do you mean by you want to think about it? Got to pray about it. What do you mean by you got to pray about it? And you talk to my wife about it. What do you mean you got to talk to your wife about it? All right, check finances. What do you mean you got to check finances? I don't know if this will work. What do you mean I don't know if this is going to work? You can use it for literally all of them, all right? Now, the biggest objection I get in this from salespeople is they're like, why am I asking, what do you mean by I need to check my finances? I know what they mean by I need to check my finances. And to that I say, bullshit. You don't know, right? It could mean they need to check if they have that amount of money in their bank account. It could be checking to see how much they have on their credit card that they need to pull down before they put this on their credit card. It could be needing to go to their broker to see how much in their 401k they have. It could be checking to see when they could pull out the funds from their 401k. It could be a million different things, right? You don't know. So this is why we do clarifying. Again, you can use these other ones as well. Why is that important? Where do you feel that comes from? What's behind that? How so? In what way? Like any of these that you want, all that you're doing is getting like their definition of what they just said. Let's just role play it real quick so you can see it in action. Who wants to be prospect? Cool. Ben, give an objection.
I gotta talk to my wife about making this kind of decision.
Okay.
It's just like I don't want to move forward without looping her in.
Okay. What do you mean by looping her in?
Well, like since I'm in a house, like I can make the decision, but since she's my partner, like out of like respect for her, like I at least want to like apprise her of the situation before I make any kind of decision, because she's my life partner. Very good.
Okay.
I just
Okay, cool. I could go to another layer deeper. Like, what do you mean by loop her in on the decision? You could go like, what's behind that? You could say in what way, like, why is that important to you? Where do you feel like you can use any of these to keep going, but you get the gist, right? After he gives the first objection, we just get a layer deeper by asking, what do you mean by that thing? Right? And by doing that, he all of a sudden will start like vomiting up new information that maybe you didn't have before. Context on why he needs to run it by his wife, context on like how they make decisions together, context on all these things that you didn't know before. This is why this will take the majority of the time out of the CIT framework, because it's just getting to what is actually true, right? This kind of plays off the concept of, I think it's in yellow belt, I'm not 100% sure, but like the internal versus external discovery topic, right? The words that we use are just externalizations of what's going on inside of our head. And sometimes humans have trouble communicating what's going on inside their head, especially at the end of the call when there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of emotions involved. What's going on inside your head is often a big jumble of tangled spaghetti, right? It's hard to verbalize in a clear and concise way what's actually going on in your head. And so us as salespeople and as sales professionals, we need to help people detangle everything that's in their head and find out what is actually going on. Because oftentimes they don't even know themselves. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So all we have to do is just ask questions. They have all the answers. It's the beauty of sales. All you have to do is ask questions, right? So those are clarifying questions. That's how you kind of get to the root of things. All right, let's move on then to isolate. So clarification stage, you go all the way down to as tangible of an objection as you can, right? To take Oscar's example, it's too expensive. It's not tangible. I don't know what the hell that means. So I say, what do you mean by that? And then here, what was the next thing that you said, Oscar? I forget.
That would feel, that kind of money coming out of my bank account would feel uncomfortable.
That's right, uncomfortable. So then I said, what do you mean by uncomfortable? And he's like, it's scary. And then like, in what way is it scary? Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent next month. Right? Mm-hmm. Scary, I don't know what the hell it means. Uncomfortable, I don't know what the hell it means. It's too expensive, I don't know what the hell it means. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent next month. I know what that means. Like, that seems pretty clear. So then I can move on to isolate. All right, so isolate is just about mirroring their language back to them and making sure that this is the only thing going on. There's nothing else going on, right? I am not getting into an objection battle. I'm not getting into handling 17 objections at once. I am making sure this is the only thing going on. And if there is something else, then you do the same process. You just loop back to clarify, all right? You write down the first one that they said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent next month. Next objection, right? So isolate. Here are some ways that you can isolate. other than not being sure if you're going to be able to pay rent next month, if you make this purchase, is there anything else that you're hesitant over? Another way to do this, super simple, is just asking what else. Right? If somebody gives you an objection, like they say they want to think about it, what do you mean you want to think about it? Oh, just big decisions, lots of money. I want to make sure that I think about it. What do you mean a lot of money? Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent next month. Okay, got it. What else? Right? It kind of just puts them on the spot for a second, and they're like, well, I don't know, maybe this thing, or they'll say, well, I guess nothing really else. That's really it. Right? All that you're doing in this step is isolating that singular objection. Make sure there's nothing else. Anything aside from not being able to pay your rent next month potentially going through your head right now? What other things are you thinking about regarding this right now? You can ask it in a million different ways. The first one is personally my favorite. The second one is another good one. The third is a good one. And the fourth. That's why I put it, right? What else is like super quick, super easy? If you're kind of a little bit more of a combative personality, it works out really well. Or like if you're highly curious, one of those two can work really well. All right. Then the T in CIT is tie down. All right. Tying down is just making sure that they feel confident about everything else and reminding them, getting them to remind themselves of how confident they really are. All right. So they come in, they give the objection. They have immediately moved. If you've gone through the training of Bulldog versus Chihuahua, week 4 of Yellow Belt, get there. If you haven't, it's fantastic. They have immediately moved into a Chihuahua state by them saying, I need to think about it. So we clarify, what do you mean you need to think about it? I need to get clear on like what has moved them. And then once we have isolated that thing, we're going to put it to the side a second. We're going to be like, okay, why were you in Bulldog state a minute ago? Right? What was it that we went over on this call that made you feel like we can actually get you to the place where you can X and Y and Z? The more details you can bring into this, generally the better. So most of you guys have been through this before. There's a couple of key steps that I like to go through and tie down. All right. Number 1, it was done in NAPQ. It was done in straight line selling. It was done in objection box. It was done in literally everywhere. So you guys probably already know it. Do you feel this can actually take you from insert problem and insert pain to insert goal and insert dream for yourself and your future and your family if it's relevant? All right. I do put in all of these things in this order: problem, pain, goal, dream. Problem is the external logistical problem. Pain is the internal emotional pain. Goal is the external logistical goal. Dream is the internal emotional dream. All right. Let's see. Who wants to go over this for their offer? We can just make it specific. Cool. Oscar. First one to raise your hand. I love it. So your offer, what is the external problem that they experience that has them on the call today?
Trading time for money.
There you go. And what pain is that causing them?
Not able to either spend time doing what they want or not able to, retire in some way.
Okay. I'm sure they could retire anyway. So like, what's the real internal pain?
Like control, maybe. Like they don't really, some of them don't have control over their time and they want, an asset which
how is
will
that
produce money for
manifesting?
them.
In what way don't they have control over their time that they would like? Like a real tangible.
Yeah, let's say if it is for the subsector of people who are corporate people, which is like 30%, 40%, they, they still have a boss. They still go to a job.
Got it. I will run with it, but we should go a layer deeper. Anyway, then goal is, what is the like external logistical goal that they want? They want to make like extra passive money to be able to retire early, right? We'll just use that one.
Yes, exactly.
And then the dream is like, why do they want to make more money and retire earlier as opposed to just like continuing what they're doing?
Yeah, just like living a a very out there lifestyle with their family,
Okay.
more time with the family, providing more for the family, creating wealth for the family.
Perfect. So, do you feel this can actually take you from like working in a 9 to 5, and I'll kind of hover over the thing that I'm going through here. So, do you
Gotcha.
feel that this can actually take you from working in a 9 to 5, being on track to retire over the course of the next 10 years, and ultimately just having to deal with working for a boss each day, not spending the time with your kids that you're wanting to the place where you can actually retire in half the time? So you don't have to work for that boss anymore. You can spend the time with your kids. You can go on those trips like you're wanting to for yourself, your future, and your family.
I do.
Case in
Yeah.
point. Right. So you want to make it as tangible as possible, right? You want to insert the problem, insert the pain, insert the goal, insert the dream. It's going to make it a little long-winded, but it's going to land. That's what you want, is you want to get them back reminded of all the reasons that they want to do this, right? You're basically stacking up a pros and cons list. So they just gave you one con. You're like, is there anything else aside from this one thing? No? Okay. What were all the pros again? And they like list up this stack of pros, right? So you're already putting it into context. You're reminding them of why they want to do this. And then you go into the second question, basic follow-up. What specifically from what we covered causes you to feel so confident about that, so sure about that, right? Makes
Quick
you
one,
feel that way.
Christian. This is
Mhm.
hyper relevant on this. Don't worry. I do this process on every call, but sometimes through the pitch, I'm also getting buy-in, and like I'm like, oh, what about that bit do you like the most, or that sort of thing. And then by the time I get to this part, I'm like, well, what specifically from what we've covered causes you to feel X, Y, Z? They're like, well, I just told you like 3 minutes ago. I've seen someone say
So
like, oh, I got short-term memory loss. Tell me again, but I don't like that. That's like a guy called Johnny Mao. I don't know if
yeah,
anyone's seen that clip, but
yeah.
um,
So easy secondary is to say what specifically from what we went over do you think is going to be the most helpful for you in the process of
yeah,
blank,
cool.
right?
That answers
So
the
if they're
question.
building their
Perfect.
AI agency or whatever, like what do you feel like is going to be the most helpful from what we went over for you specifically, right? Or keys to the castle is another great little, phrase you can use. What do you feel like are really going to be the keys to the castle for you in this whole process? And then scale of 1 to 10 is the next part. All right, so scale of 1 to 10, 1 being this ridiculous, humorous thing. Again, this is training, I'm pretty sure in yellow belt. 10 being reasonably certain. All right. Some dumbass had the idea of saying 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely certain, like 100% confident, all in, like this is exactly what I want to do with my life. I'm doing nothing. Like, fuck that shit. Because that is not real, right? It's not a real thing. You were never 100% confident on anything, aside from you're probably going to die and that you're going to be charged taxes in the meantime, and you're going to be charged taxes when you die, right? Death and taxes, like the only real thing. We'll go over that another time. But what specifically, so a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being this ridiculous thing. So you can say, like, you absolutely hated everything that we went through. You're just looking for the soonest moment that you can press the little red button down in the corner and you think my breath stinks, right? Absolutely ridiculous. They can't even fucking smell your breath, right? 10 being you feel reasonably certain that this can actually take you from, and then you restate everything that you said before, right? You're reminding them of all the reasons that they want to do this that they gave you. Just as a reminder, where do you feel like you are? So I'm not saying, again, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you don't think this is for you, 10 being you absolutely know this is what you need for your life and your future and you're 100% confident on it. It's scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you feel like this is the worst thing you've ever heard of. This is not what you want at all and you think my breath stinks. And then a 10 being you feel reasonably certain that this can take you from the place where you were working the 9 to 5, retiring later than you'd like to, not spending the time with the kids that you'd like, to the place where you can finally retire early, spend the time with your family, go on the trips that you wanted, and ultimately feel that fulfillment, like as a dad and as a husband. Like, where do you feel like you are on that scale? They're going to be darn close to a 10, 99% of the time, right? That's the goal. We're trying to get them to be as close to a 10 as possible. If you'd like, you can say no 3s or 7s if you get a lot. It's a fun little wink wink moment because people just like to give 3s and 7s for some reason. It's like, it's not too far up, it's not too far down, like it's above the middle. 7s are BS, yeah. So then from here, the next question is, why not a 1? Right, don't be the pushy salesperson that gets overexcited and say, you know, what would it take to be a 10 right away? I want to know why you're not a 1. They may mention something about how they can't smell your breath because we're on Zoom. They may mention something about how, you know, well, everything makes sense. Like, I can see that you guys know what you're talking about. Like, you've clearly worked with a lot of people. Like, you clearly have your shit together. So then, what would it take to be a 10? And if they already said 10 before, you can say, what would it take to be an 11? Just smile at them. Right? This is just like, what is missing here? By doing this, they're probably going to go back to their original objection, or they're going to give you a brand new one. That's deeper seated objection than the beginning one. All right? One of those two things are going to happen. So at this point, you've clarified the objection. You got to the root of it. You isolated the objection, so you know there's nothing else going on that's causing them to hesitate on this. And you've tied down the fact they feel this can get them to where they want to go, why they feel like it can get them to where they want to go. Scale of 1 to 10, they're like a 9 out of 10. Definitely not a 1, because you guys clearly know what you're talking about. So then what would it take to be a 10? And they'll either, again, restate the original objection, or they'll give you a deeper objection than they gave you before. More like internal, more fear-based, typically. This is the fun part. One of my favorites sayings from Shrek, if anybody here has seen the old Shrek movie. Ogres have layers, cakes have layers, onions have layers, objections have layers. He didn't actually say that, but if he was in sales, he'd probably say the last bit. Those first 3 are from the movie. That was good. So objections have layers. So here's a little onion for you just for that. I had to go on Canva and like make that actual graphic just for this. You're welcome. Outer layer, circumstances. Middle layer is other people, and the inner layer is self. All objections, in my opinion, can be brought down to these 3. All right, circumstances, other people, and self. Circumstances. Who can think of circumstance objections? Objections that are based off of their circumstances. Just put them in the chat whenever you think of them. Time, holiday, yep, money, yep, logistics. The market, yeah, burnt in the past, traveling, yep. All these things are circumstantial objections. They're just like, they're different for everybody. If you think about it this way, middle layer and inner layer are people-based. Outer layer is not people-based. Religion, maybe, that's like a little bit more person-based because like religion is very close to somebody's personhood. Bills, buying a house, traveling, the market, logistics, moving money, fixed income. Yep. So those are all circumstance objections. These are very Chihuahua objections. So we just need to move somebody through circumstances, right? If somebody's blaming their circumstances, all you have to do is help them see that they're blaming their circumstances. All right, we'll go through that in a second. The middle layer is then other people. This could be, I need to talk to my broker about getting the money out of the account. It could be, I need to talk to my spouse, my business partner, other people in some way. I got to go, you know, you get young kids on the calls and they're like, I need to go talk to my mentor. Who's your mentor? Oh, it's my uncle. It's like, oh, what's your uncle do for work? Nothing. He's unemployed. I'm kidding. Anything, right? Other people. He's a bum. Yeah. 10 minutes. So middle layer is any other human being, generally. All right. This can also be like if you want to think about it, pray about it in that sense. Same thing. If they want to go like meditate on it, that's sometimes a little bit of a mix of 2 and 3, but that's a bit of a weirder one. Inner layer is then themselves. So this is somebody who is more on the bulldog side of things. They realize that they're the person holding themselves back, whether it be fear, uncertainty, whether it be being comfortable. Comfortable is kind of circumstances. But yeah, any sort of objection with themselves. Maybe it's if they come in, they failed a lot in the past and they're afraid that they're going to fall off again, right? So that would be a good example of an objection that could be any of the three that they failed in the past, right? So if they say, you know, I've enrolled in programs like this before and they just like never work. Which one is that? Is that outer, middle, or inner? I've tried other programs in the past and they just haven't worked.
Inner
Nope.
circumstance.
Outer. Yep. Look at who they're blaming. And they just
Themselves.
haven't worked.
Yeah.
Right. They just haven't worked. Or like, you know, I've been in these other programs before and, you know, the last one that I was in, just like, you know, they didn't really support me a ton inside the program. That one would be a good example of middle, right? They're blaming other people for not supporting them. Versus an inner would be, I've tried other programs before and like consistently a couple weeks in, I'll be doing good. And then I just, like I fall off for some reason or another. Like just life gets in the way. I lack discipline. Like I just can't seem to follow through. Right? That's an inner one. It's an objection. It's a problem with themselves. You see the difference? Outer, middle, inner. Is it clicking? Cool. This is really important because once you see what it is, then you can handle it. If you don't understand where it lies inside of the onion, then you don't know how many layers need to peel off. You may just try to like cut the onion open. So you have to peel back these layers oftentimes one by one. If somebody has a circumstances objection, peel off that layer and see if they have another one. They may not. Don't know. You won't know until you peel it. Middle layer, maybe you get to that middle layer and they talk about how, you know, they didn't need enough support in the last program. Peel that off, see if they have an inner objection past that. All right. Now, there are a bunch of ways that you can handle objections, like actually handle them. I'm not going to go through all of these, right? There's adept, there's PCP, there's DPBE, there's BRVRQE. There's a million ways that you can handle objections. I particularly like this one. Good comes from bad. We'll go through it in a second. But here are my two favorite, most reliable ways to handle objections, like buying a Toyota Camry. It's going to run until it has 300,000 miles on it. All right. All the other ones, like, they're all right. But these two have worked, I think, every time that I've used them, actually. So first one is this Bulldog versus Chihuahua. I've mentioned it before, but like this is already inside of Yellow Belt, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But the more Bulldog somebody is, the less likely they are to give the objection very much weight, and the more likely they are to move forward, even if the objection doesn't get fully handled. So this one for me is the most meta way to handle any objection, because they can still have the objection and still buy. I don't even have to handle the objection because they're in such a bullish state that they will still do it, right? Maybe they did fail in the past. But if they're so bullish on wanting to fucking do this and do it now and change their life, then like, who the fuck cares if they failed in the past? They don't. So I don't even have to overcome the objection. That's why I put work smarter, not harder, all right? You don't even have to handle the objection to get somebody by. Shocker. So Bulldog versus Chihuahua. Again, if you haven't been through it, go into Yellow Belt. All right, it's right here at the end of Yellow Belt in week 4. All right, so I'm not going to cover it here. The other one that I will cover here, because it's a little bit more of like a solid training topic to go through here on a call, is you've done this before. All right. Who here remembers the first time that they did something scary that they've now done a million times? since then? Anybody? All right, Brody, what was the thing that you did that was scary at first?
Cold approaching a girl when I was super young.
Ooh,
I was fucking
alrighty.
terrified.
All right,
Like
why
most
were you
guys.
terrified?
Rejection, not knowing what to say. So embarrassment of not knowing what to say, just by being like
Okay.
a
So as you were going up to that first girl to approach her, what was going through your head? What were you
the
feeling?
first time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was a pool of sweat.
Yeah.
Drive it that way. Nervous, like shit, what do I say? Yeah, I can remember the feeling. Can remember it. It's coming
Yeah.
up now. Just like very hot and sweaty and panicky.
Okay. And then it sounds like you still approached her anyway, even though you were feeling those things, right?
Yep.
Okay. Why did you do it anyway? It sounds like it's pretty uncomfortable.
Because oh, this was when I was a teenager. Because in that moment, I just felt like the pain of pulling out would have been like I would have been up all night thinking about it. So the pain of pulling out would have just been, to me at that time, unbearable compared to embarrassing myself.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So
using mad language here.
yeah, pain of pulling out. I thought it was funny. So I guess let me ask, was it worth it?
1,000%.
Would you do it again?
In a heartbeat.
Okay. And now when you cold approach a girl, it's probably not nearly as intense of feelings, is it?
No, it's just like, hey, how are you? Oh, you don't want to talk to me? Okay, cool.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So I just did the process of you've done this before with Brody. All right. Everybody has made a decision like this one that they're on the call to make in the past. Everybody, whether they realize it or not. All that we have to do is ask them about that process when they made it in the past and whether they felt they made the right decision or not. It's a double bind, is what this is. It's pretty cool. Because if they felt they made the right decision, then are they ready to make the right decision again? If they felt they made the wrong decision, then are they ready to make a different decision now? All right. So we'll go into that later. But the whole point of this, I'm going to go into this here. Done this before. I already role played it. You've done this before. Step one is you want to summarize the objection into simple terms. So up to this point, we did CIT, right? We got the clear objection. We got it clarified, isolated, tied down. Let's just use, they're scared because they've never spent this amount of money before, right? Classic. Never spent 8 grand before all at once. So the biggest thing holding you back right now that has you an 8 instead of a 10 is just the fact that you've never spent this amount of money before all at once, correct? Yes. Okay. Has there ever been a time in your life where you spent more money than you ever had before? Shocker. Everybody has done this at some point. There's the first time anybody spent $1 at the dollar store. There's the first time they spent $100 on dinner. Like everybody's made this decision before. I guarantee it. Another objection might be like, I'm scared to make this purchase because I don't know if I'm going to make rent, right? This one, I would probably go another layer deeper because like it's logistical, realistically, like you're just figuring out money logistics there. So like there's not really a ton of an objection to handle. It's just like money in, money out. Does it work? Can you finance, right? Maybe they're afraid of financing, right? Maybe they feel like they don't have the time to put into something like this, right? Has there ever been a time in your life where you decided to put time into something even though you really didn't have a ton of time to do it in the first place because you felt like it was worth it because you knew it would get you to where you wanted to go? Right? Everybody has. Have you ever made a decision even though you were a little bit uncertain about it? All of this can always be done within this. Has there ever been a time in life where you blank, just experienced something similar? Once they give you that time, what you are now doing is instead of coming up with some analogy, you're getting them to come up with their own analogy based on their own past experience. Right? The principle in sales of whatever I say is garbage, whatever the prospect says is gospel, this is using that with analogies. Anybody ever learns a bunch of fancy analogies before in sales? Bridge analogy, the island, right? We all make decisions based off our own perspective, all those sorts of things, like all these sorts of analogies, airplane. There's a million ones that you can memorize. But let me ask you, is it going to be as powerful as somebody going through and reliving a past experience that they've already lived that was highly emotional for them? It's not going to be as powerful, is it? If I get you as a prospect to come up with an analogy, it's going to blow out of the water any other analogy that could ever be produced in that moment any day of the week. Because it's coming from you. It's coming from your own past experiences, right? Super powerful. Super powerful. All right, now, step 3 is getting them to retell the story. Just like I did with Brody. I was like, do you remember the first time that you did that? What did it feel like? What was the experience? I could have gone even deeper, right? The girl you approached, what was she wearing? Where were you? Were you at the bar? Were you at, an event? What was that? What did you say to her at first? Like, oh shit, that's a terrible thing to say. Maybe we should have done something, all those sorts of things. You just get them to relive it, right? You're getting them to retell the story. And Brody, like he said, I didn't even prompt it. He said in the moment, I am recalling those feelings right now. Right? So now we're getting them into an emotional state. This is a topic called revivification. I think I go through it in purple or brown belt, but like it's the reason that future pace and cost run action work so well, because it's like they're actually living things, right? The more that you can get somebody to imagine themselves actually living in the moment, the more powerful it's going to be with their brain. So same thing here, even if it's, a logical objection, they're going to feel these feelings coming up in their brain. And so you just ask them to retell the story. You ask clarifying questions around it. What was it like? Why'd you do it? Are you glad you did it? If given the option, would you do it again the same way, or would you do it differently this time? Why? All those sorts of things. And then step 4 is drawing the parallels to the current situation. All right. So let's just go back to Brody's example, right? It was the first time that he had ever cold approached a girl. It was scary the first time. But now that he's done it a million times, now it's completely normal. Like there's no fear around it at all. Right? And so now coming back to the objection of this is the first time that I'm spending $8,000 all at once. Right? Now it's going to be fairly simple. So you draw the parallels in the story. So that first time that you approach the girl is like this first time that you're ever spending $8,000 all at once. And the more that you're able to do it over time, the easier it becomes because you've just done it before. It makes sense that it's scary right now because it's your first time. And if you feel you made the right decision before, in terms of pushing through that fear, pushing through that feeling of being uncomfortable, and asking the girl, even if the question wasn't necessarily the best first question in the world, and you've learned since then, like, are you ready to do the same thing again? Like, do you really feel that that was the right decision? Because this is a time where you get to test it. How you know whether you really feel it was the right decision or not is whether you do it again. All right. That's how you basically just like tie things back to the current situation from the analogy. And then step number 5 is a 3-step decision funnel. Right? This is pretty simple. This is how you basically tie up any analogy that you want to use, whether you're using theirs, whether you're using one of your own, whatever. 3-step decision funnel. Step 1 is the external goal, desire, dream that your offer directly solves. So let's just go back to like the AI offer as an example, helping people retire early, make more passive income, be able to spend more time with their family, etc. That's like the direct external goal that they want to achieve. So you get them to answer that is what they want, right? So let's come back here for a second. Let's say the AI offer is like 25K, right? So maybe they've never spent 25 grand all at once before on anything except for like a car or a house. Never spent 25 grand on like a business opportunity or something, right? You do the whole analogy about when they first cold approached their wife, first date, they were super scared, whatever. You go through all of that. Did you feel like it was worth it? Yes. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I know that you're wanting to, do all of this. Like the reason that we're here today is because ultimately you want to retire early, right? You want to be in the position where you have passive income, where you're no longer trading your time for money, and you can actually spend the time with your family that you want to spend, like while you're still young enough to enjoy it, right? Yes, Christian. Step 1 covered. Step 2. And I know that the reason that you want to do that is because you said that you wanted to have that internal level of fulfillment, knowing that you're there for your kids, that you can actually spend the time with them before they go off to college, before you're never really going to have as much time with them again as you do right now. You want to make sure that you actually spend that with them so that you're there, you're present as a dad because you knew that you never had that as a kid. Is that right? Yes, Christian. So what decision do you want to make today? And you can use a classic line, like easiest one in the book, so that when your head hits the pillow tonight, you know that you have made the decisions to put yourself in the best possible position to go and achieve all those things for yourself, for your family, for your future today. I need to do it. No, you don't. You can fuck with them, right? Like, no, you don't. You don't need to. You can just keep doing whatever you're doing. You're like, no, I fucking need to do it. It's like, no, you don't need to, but do you want to? Yes, I want to do it. Why? Because blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, if you're so sure, I guess I'll take your credit card numbers, right? That's the 3-step funnel at the end. So to go back to this, it's really like, I guess, kind of, what would that be? 7 steps? So step 1, summarize the objection. Step 2, has there ever been a time in your life? Give me your analogy. Step number 3, get them to retell the story. Ask them story type questions. As if your friend was spilling the tea to you as you're at the bar or something, right? They're like, dude, you won't believe what just happened today. Dude, what the fuck happened? Dude, that's crazy. Where did that even come from? Oh, how did that feel? What was that like? Right? Did they do this? Holy shit, that's crazy. Right? Same stuff. You're just retelling the story. It's story time with a friend. Step number 4, draw parallels to the current situation so that they can see like you actually drawing the lines between the analogy, that you're not just doing it for no reason. And then you start the 3-step funnel, external goal, internal feelings, and then decision today. The specific line that I do pretty much always use on decision today is that when your head hits a pillow, 1, because it combines a couple of different things. It gets them to visualize it. It gets them to feel it, right? They imagine right then their head hitting the pillow in that moment. Again, revivification. Also using idiosensory hypnosis, but whatever. So when your head hits the pillow, you have made the decisions today that put you in the best position to go and achieve all the things that you said that you wanted for yourself, for your future, for your family, right? The more detailed you are with that last line, generally the better it's going to land. The more vague you are, the more wiggle room they're going to have to get out of that, right? But if you are very explicit with stating exactly what they said they wanted instead of being lazy and being vague, you're going to close. So we got the decision funnel, external goal. Listen to him, I get it. You want to do blank so that you can hit your goals, etc. Internal desire, and you want to blank so that you can finally stop blank and finally feel blank, right? Yes. So decision today, what are you going to make today? Are you going to make the decision to, you can do the negative analogy. You can re-rope in the analogy here. Are you going to make the decision to just like never ask your parents for the money and continue to wish that you could go to this event and just like be embarrassed inside of yourself and just never get to experience it? Or are you going to make the decision to finally just make the ask so you can go, you can feel this, blah, 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 for yourself, your future, your family, etc. So that when your head hits a pillow tonight, you know you've taken responsibility for life, done everything you can to put yourself on the right path, blah, 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 blah. You want to make this more like explicit to what they've said, but That's the gist.
So the resources needed and the funding needed in order for us to allocate the resources to give you the coaching, the supplement system, the accountability partners, and ultimately just get you started on that path where you can consistently be losing weight over time and get back to that goal weight of that 180 pounds, like you mentioned that you wanted. So you feel comfortable taking your shirt off, you feel proud of yourself, all those sorts of things. It's just 6,000 USD.
Gotcha. I really want to do it, man. I love it. Looks like you guys have like everything that I need to get to my dream outcome. But I gotta talk to my girlfriend. It's like 6K. Don't want to make a decision without her knowing.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's like 6K gonna go from the account, and we kind of live together, so like our finances are like together. And I don't want to spend like 6K on something without her knowing. I know it's gonna work. I really want to do it, but just gotta talk to her.
Okay. What do you mean by like you want to do it?
I'm in. Like I love the program.
Okay. So, I guess then what do you mean by like you shared finances? Talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so like we started living together like a year ago, and from that point, both the money we make is just a joint account. So we make like big financial decisions together. So don't want to spend like 6K without her knowing.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. So I guess aside from just like letting her know that you're gonna do this, is there anything else kind of coming up for you on your end personally?
No, honestly, I love it.
Okay, so like scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you feel like this is exactly what you need. You feel like you want to get started with this and make the changes, and 1 being like you absolutely hate this and you think that I'm ugly. Where do you feel like you fall?
Yeah, for me, obviously, like you can't know everything inside without being inside. So like I would say like a 9. But from what I've seen, like this is what I want to do.
Okay, got it. Why not a 1?
I mean, you're not ugly. I don't hate you, and it looks like I really think you guys can give me results. Like I've tried other fitness programs in the past, it didn't really work. They didn't have the accountability, everything, like it wasn't like everything all together. So it looks like this is the end all be all solution. Okay. That's why I want to do it. It's just talking to the spouse.
I guess what would it take to be a 10 then?
If she was here, she knew that I was doing this.
Okay.
I mean, she knew I was taking a call like this, but we didn't know it was 6K.
Okay. Was there like a number that you guys had in mind, or?
I think if it was like 2, 3, I could swing it myself and it wouldn't be a big deal. But after like at least 5, it becomes a little. Okay. Don't want to do it without.
Where does that 5K number kind of come from? Is that like how you guys typically make decisions, or?
I mean, I make, I guess, the most amount of money because I own like my own business and stuff. Mm-hmm. So if it's for the business, I kind of make the decisions alone. Because I kind of know my business and like I know how it runs.
Sure.
But when it comes to more like lifestyle stuff, I've never spent more than like I spent once 4K for something without her knowing.
Okay.
It caused a lot of problems. That's why I don't want to go back to that again.
Okay. And like I guess how long has she been aware that like you've been unhappy with your current level of health and fitness, and like you're you mentioned you're kind of ashamed whenever you take off your shirt in the mirror. Like, is she aware of all of that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. How long have you guys been, like, talking about that?
It's been a while, man, honestly. Like, in the first couple of years, I was pretty in shape. I was working hard, But then when I started building the business, I had to put my focus there. So I feel like this area is, like, really lacking now.
Yeah.
And I think it's, like, 1-2 years of being aware of this.
Yeah. And she knows the emotional toll that's kind of been taken on you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
for sure.
Well, let's do this. Like, I'm not in the business of causing breakups or divorces or anything like that. So you said like 2 or 3K. Let's just do like half. Let's do your half, and then you go and chat with your girlfriend. And if she's like, you know what, I am absolutely going to break up with you because you want to get in the best shape of your life, and be proud of yourself and get your confidence back, then we can give back the 3K and like part as friends. But I don't know, you tell me, do you think that she's going to be against you actually getting this solved so that you can have your confidence back. Obviously, she's going to be probably way more attracted to you as well. And like, you guys are probably going to be happier, but you tell me, what do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it like that.
Okay.
Let's do 3K and then let's do the rest after I have a conversation with her.
Awesome. When do you feel like you're going to be able to have that conversation with her this evening?
For sure
Like
tonight.
6, 7?
Today?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do like 6, 7.
Okay, cool. Will you just give me a call after you have a chat with her and we can get the rest settled up?
Sure. Let's do it.
So to handle this objection, we always start with the CIT framework. Again, clarify, isolate, and tie down. We figure out what is the real objection, is there anything else going on, and how close are they to actually being able to like make the decision, make sure they have full confidence in things. They feel like this can actually get them to where they're wanting to go. And then after that, it basically just came down to the age-old partner objection. There's a lot of different ways that you can handle this. You can like go really hard on the person and like whose responsibility is it to like be the person, etc., etc. However, I myself am married and I have been in this situation many, many times. I'm no longer in it. I will spend ridiculous amounts of money without talking to my wife. However, I was once in that position, and so I kind of understand where people are coming from there. And so for me personally, I never want to handle an objection that I believe is at least like somewhat valid in somebody's life. I feel like it's a bit of an incongruency. And so because I believe that that objection is valid, I'm going to help this person find a way through it and basically become creative with them in order to take a step towards their outcome that they want. So rather than just like letting them go and, you know, completely defer the decision to talking with their spouse, I'm going to find where we can find a line in the middle. In this case, he said it himself. It was 2 to 3K that he could swing on his own. So I'm just going to take the path of least resistance as a closer. Like, I'm going to get the deal closed. I'm going to get off the call, hop on to my next call. We're going to do the 3K and then settle up the rest after he's chatted with his girlfriend. Now, I have also framed, when he goes and chats with his girlfriend, all of the reasons that he wants to do this in terms of the confidence, being proud of himself, looking better, you know, girlfriend going to be even more attracted to him afterwards, all these sorts of things, how long they've been talking about it, the emotional toll that it's taken on him, potentially even on his business. I probably would have repped that in earlier in the call as well. And so that when he goes and chats with his girlfriend, all of that stuff is top of mind. And now it's coming from a place of like, I've already made the decision on my end and I've put down money to solidify it and to prove to you that I'm serious, rather than like going back to the girlfriend, like asking permission, right? It's a little bit of a difference, but it's very nuanced and it's very important that you do it the right way. Otherwise, like, this person's just going to come back, they're going to ask for a refund, and the whole thing won't work anyway. But this will work for, you know, girlfriends, it'll work for wives, it'll work for business partners. I've used this on $100,000 deals in the past with multiple business partners and board members and all sorts of stuff. So the same framework works across the board. So the funding needed in order for us to allocate the resources to give you the coaching, the course, the accountability, and ultimately just put you in the position where you can generate that $10,000 or more dollars a month, month after month, so you can, you know, leave your job, be able to retire your wife, and ultimately just kind of become that 2.0 version of yourself like you mentioned that you wanted, is just 10,000 USD.
That's a lot of money. 10K.
What do you mean?
I was expecting more along the lines of like 3 to 5.
Okay. I guess aside from just maybe being more than you expected, is there anything else kind of coming up for you, or how do you feel?
No, man, honestly, when it comes to the process, I think you guys nailed it. I'm going to get into e-commerce. I feel like this is the process that I need, but it's just that's a lot of money. 10K.
Okay. Sure. When you say you feel like it's the process that you need, like what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so like I had the idea of like starting an e-commerce brand for a long time, and I already took like the first couple of steps. I know I need help for sure, and the time is now. And from the process you explained to me, I know the fact that you guys can bring the results. What I was expecting that tech.
Okay, totally get it. From what we went over, was there anything specific that like really made you feel that this is exactly what you need?
Yeah, I actually talked to a couple of other brands, and they didn't really give me that reassurance that's really gonna work. Like, I only got that confidence from you guys.
Where do you think that confidence comes from, though?
The process was very detailed. I feel like there's a lot of support. So if I get stuck, if I have questions, I feel like I can actually ask them and get like specific help on it.
Okay. So
That's
like
why. That's
maybe just aside from it being a little bit more than you expected, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like you reasonably feel like this is what you need and can actually get you to where you're wanting to go, making that 10K a month, like retire your wife, do all that sort of stuff that we've mentioned. And a 1 being like, this is absolutely horrible and you think my breath stinks. Where do you feel like you fall?
if we define 10 as like it's reasonably, it's probably gonna get me to 10K. It's like 9, 10, honestly.
Okay. Why not a 1?
I mean, you guys have like looks like a very, very detailed program. You guys have amazing testimonials. I can't see how it's gonna be a 1.
Okay. So what would it take to be a 10, do you think?
In terms of the program or in terms of how I feel?
Yes.
I don't know, man. It's just the program is pretty good. It's just a lot of money.
Sure. I guess, do you feel that it's worth that amount of money?
If I'm gonna get the dream outcome, like the outcome that I think you guys can get me to, for sure.
Okay. So what's coming up for you? It sounds like maybe it's just a little bit of uncertainty around maybe you haven't spent this much money before, or like where do you think that fear kind of comes from?
I mean, I've spent money for like course and coaching in the past. Never 10K. I've done like 3K stuff, like 2K stuff, and I understand it's supposed to be like more expensive. Your guys' brand is so much more valuable. You guys actually get results. But like just dropping 10K just feels a little uncomfortable.
Sure. If it's uncomfortable, why not just kind of completely shy away from it? Like why are you still here?
My tendency is to do that now, but I feel like I know I have to.
Why? Because you don't really.
If I don't, I don't think I'm gonna get the outcome.
So let me ask you this way. Has there ever been a time in your life where you've made an uncomfortable decision, where maybe it was scary at first, uncomfortable, whatever words you want to use, but you did it anyway, and you felt like it was worth it afterwards?
I mean, starting my ecom brand was a decision like that. Like
Okay.
my parents didn't want me to, but I did it anyway. Risky, put a lot of money into it as well,
Do you feel like it was worth it?
for sure.
Why was it worth it?
I mean, I'm here now. Like I'm not making the money that I want, but like I'm making more than most people make.
So, like, you realize that in order to succeed in life, generally you have to make some uncomfortable decisions, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I guess, do you want to do the same thing again? Do you want to make another uncomfortable decision in order to get to an even better place? Or would you rather just kind of stay in that comfort zone and potentially look back in another couple of years with regret?
I really don't want to. I really don't want to look back with regret.
You could. That's what most people do, to be honest. Like, I take hundreds of these calls, I'll tell you.
I feel like I know I have to, but it's just
At the end of the day, Ahmet, like you don't have to. You can choose whatever you want with your life. And if you decide that you want to just kind of continue down the path that you're on, like we've already talked it through, you understand where that leads. And it doesn't lead to where you want to go. And at the end of the day, I'm just like some random guy on the internet talking to you on a Zoom call. But given everything that we've gone through, I don't see any way that you continuing to do what you're doing is ever going to get you to where you want to go. And like that's just a fact of life, is that if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same result, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this way. Do you want to keep getting the same result?
No.
So
Absolutely
do
not.
you want to keep doing the same thing?
No.
So what do you want to do?
Got to change.
You sure?
Yep. Fuck, let's do it.
All right. If you say so. So right at the beginning there, the first thing to understand is just what is the real objection. And so we always go through the same framework in the Sales Dojo that is CIT. It's an acronym. It stands for clarify, isolate, and tie down. So clarify is basically just whenever I ask, what do you mean? Or how do you mean? Or things like that. So when we said it was a lot of money, like I really don't know what that means. It could mean that it's a lot of money compared to what's in your bank account, all sorts of different things. So I need to clarify, understand what the real objection is. It was that it just felt like it was really expensive. He was expecting something else. And so this was just a little bit of a price shock. So like completely normal. We isolated that was the only objection. There was nothing else going on that was giving him any sort of hesitation. And then we tied down the fact that he felt the program could get him to where he wanted to go. And ultimately, he felt like it was what he needed and fairly confident on it, a 9.5 to a 10 out of 10. And the only thing necessary in order to get him to a 10 was just that it was more money than he expected. So like if he expected it to be this much, which he already mentioned that he kind of expected that it would be more expensive, then he'd be good to go. So once we got there, then we were just kind of dealing with a little bit of his fear around the money. And so we went down a little bit of a logical path first, just to kind of tie off some loose ends and start getting him to see that like 10K, it really didn't matter that much. It was about the results that he was wanting to get to. And then there at the end, he was still just kind of hesitating with some fear on some things. And so that's where I kind of just started giving him a couple of binaries in order to help him start to really funnel down and decide what it was that he wanted. So if you ever get to the end of objection handling, you're just kind of looping in circles, just start giving them options. Like, do you want to stay the same or do you want something different? And then pretty much every time, people are going to say that they want the different thing, and you start leading them down that path, and ultimately they'll make the tough decision.
All right, so if you're getting the DIY objection, here's what it actually means. When a prospect says, I think I'll just try doing this on my own, they could be saying a lot of different things. They could be saying that it's too much money. They could be saying that like they don't feel like they have the time for this. They could be saying that they don't feel like the value is there. They could be saying a lot of different things, but oftentimes at the root of this objection is somebody telling themselves internally, I don't fully believe that you are required for me to succeed, right? It's not always about the money. It's about a perceived self-efficacy, right? They believe that they can figure it out or at least try to without any sort of external help, right? They're saying, I've done stuff like this before. I don't want to feel like I need a coach. I want to own my own win and not just like outsource it. And so it's really important to understand this because it's not always just a basic surface level objection. It is oftentimes identity based. It's below the surface. And if you try to handle it with logic or urgency or force, then you're not just going to lose the sale, but you're going to lose your own respect in the process, right? So here's why the objection oftentimes comes up in the first place. Let's talk about the psychology of it for a second. This objection usually comes up when somebody feels threatened, all right? Not necessarily in a bad way, but they feel threatened by their identity as someone who figures things out or is being challenged, right? Now, what this means is like if they were maybe an athlete in the past, maybe they're a solopreneur, they're used to kind of solving things independently. And a lot of people take pride in their ability to identify and solve problems on their own. And so when they hear your offer, it triggers this subconscious resistance. They're telling themselves internally, if I say yes to this, that means that I'm not capable. And most salespeople just miss this entirely. They immediately just like jump on it with trying to induce urgency or like logic sell, or maybe even trying to handle some sort of fear that doesn't exist by, you know, saying rebuttals like you'll waste more time by doing it alone, or you've already tried this before in the past and failed. Like what makes you feel like this is going to be any different? Or they'll go into like the definition of insanity, right? And those things might be true. Like I'm not saying that those aren't a factor. They very well might be in the call, but oftentimes when you just jump in with that, it's going to make somebody feel judged, And so here's how you go through this whole process and make sure that they don't actually feel judged, how you identify where somebody is in the buying pocket and how to move them closer to it. All right. So the first thing to understand is this circle right here in the middle is the buying pocket. This is where you want somebody to be in order to make a buying decision. And on the left-hand side, we've got a couple of things. This is really the zone of uncertainty. All right. If you get somebody who maybe they have low confidence, maybe they are somebody who just like struggles with believing that they can do stuff, right? They tell themselves, I can't do it. Or maybe they just worry that like, what if it doesn't work, right? This is, again, uncertainty. Now, the right-hand side is a state of certainty, but this is postured certainty. So maybe they're thinking of, I don't need it, right? Need this. I can figure it out on my own. Pardon my terrible handwriting. It out on my own. Maybe they say something like, you know, they don't trust you, right? Trust you. So they have a higher level of certainty in themselves than they do other people. They feel like they don't need other people, and they feel like they can just overall do it themselves. Okay, so with this DIY objection, if somebody's on this left-hand side, right, in the uncertainty side, then we need to build them up. But more often than not, the DIY objection comes when somebody is on the right-hand side, when they have this level of confidence and certainty inside of themselves to just go and do it on their own. This is where, number one, use the CIT framework. I've taught this in another video on my channel. If you want to go see it, check it out. But another thing to add into this, if somebody has a high level of certainty in themselves that is borderline delusional or sometimes just completely delusional, it does not serve them to have this delusional certainty inside of themselves, right? If you've ever heard the definition of insanity, it is doing the same thing while expecting a different result. And so more often than not, somebody comes on the call because they've been trying something on their own and they haven't been able to figure it out. And so then they want to leave the call and go back to doing it on their own. Like, what do you really expect is going to happen? Probably they're not going to figure it out. However, they could, who knows? But if you're getting the DIY objection, that's usually where it comes from. So here's how to actually handle it step by step. Let's say that we didn't actually handle this in discovery like we should have. I'm going to go over that in a second, and it just popped up in the end, right? What's the actual word track? What's the actual question framework you would use to handle the objection? So first, you want to go through the CIT framework. Without explaining it too much, like just go watch that other video. C stands for clarify, I stands for isolate, and T stands for tied down, right? Then what are the questions that you would ask after that in order to break the limiting belief of I can do it myself? Maybe it's just creating doubt in historically they haven't been able to figure it out themselves, and you use the insanity framework. Maybe it is a question of how much longer do you want to be spending to figure it out? Maybe it's an urgency based thing, right? How many more days do you want to be stuck in the place where you're trying to figure it out, as opposed to just being in the place where you haven't figured out and you can just get the result that much faster? Maybe it is the idea of like price versus cost, right? Or cost-based versus value-based. What is it actually costing you in terms of trying to figure this out on your own, in terms of time, resources, energy, versus if you had already figured it out? Like, what's the opportunity cost is another fantastic one. Hormozy talks about this all the time. The opportunity cost of you not knowing how to make $1 million a year, if you're making $50K a year right now, is costing you $950,000 a year. Because if you had figured it out a year ago, you would have had an extra $950K in your bank account instead of just 50. So those are some just simple little rebuttals. But ultimately what you want to do in sales is learn how to prevent objections entirely. Because before the price is dropped, objections are just obstacles. They're little roadblocks, they're little concerns. But when you induce price into the conversation, now you are a pushy salesperson in this person's mind more often than not. And so because there's this new added pressure of the price, people are going to act wildly differently because people have broken relationships with money. So the ideal place to actually handle objections is before we even talk about the price of the program. When like we understand that the objection may come up at the end, we should just have a skilled conversation in order to bring it out early on in the conversation anyway. Here is the real magic of how to prevent this objection entirely and make sure that the objection never actually comes up because you've done your job in discovery. So in discovery, you want to go through the 6 layers of confidence, right? Now, the 6 layers of confidence is something that I've developed off the back of a bunch of other trainings and kind of just meshed it together. And this is where you go through 6 separate layers of understanding where somebody is at in terms of their buying process. So the first layer is whatever they believe that like the biggest problem is in their life, in their business or whatever that has them here on this call right now. Do they believe that if they actually solved the problem, would they be able to achieve the result, right? So layer 1 is confidence in the fact that this is the problem, that if they get the solution, then it will lead to their ideal outcome. All right. Very, very simple. Number 2 is then the actual vehicle, right? In terms of the vehicle, this can be whatever it is that you're selling. You want to go like 1 layer up. So let's say that maybe you are selling Amazon FBA, right? If you're selling an FBA, BizOp, investment, whatever, the vehicle is going to be, it can be a mix of just like e-commerce, or it can be Amazon itself. So it can be a mix of a couple of different things. So you can take a couple of steps here if you'd like. But like, why e-commerce? So if somebody is looking to invest their money, I want to know why e-commerce versus real estate. I want to know why e-commerce versus cryptocurrency. I want to know why e-commerce versus all the other ways that you can make money out there. And then the second layer of that is, like I said, FBA. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make money within e-commerce. You can do Shopify, you can do Etsy, you can do eBay, you can do all sorts of crap. You can do your own full brand. Like, why Amazon FBA? And so then they're justifying to you, they're selling you on why e-commerce and why this specific vehicle, right? Maybe you're selling an AI agency, right? Done for you. Why are you wanting to get into the AI space at all in the first place? Like, why not go into e-commerce? Why not go into crypto? Why not do all these other things to make money? And they'll explain to you and sell you on why they want to get into AI. It's great. But then the next layer is like, okay, and why do you want to actually provide it as like an agency service for businesses as opposed to just implementing it into your own business that does something else? And then again, they will further explain and sell you on why this is important. So that's level 2, is the vehicle. Level number 3 is now where things start to get fun. So this is the actual brand. This is your business, your company, right? Why are you here? Why do you feel like we might be the people that can actually solve all of this for you? What is it that you saw that made us stand apart from all the other stuff out there? They could have just seen a singular ad and opted in, and maybe they're talking to 7 or 8 other companies at the same time. You don't know unless you ask. So I'm doing all of this to prevent the DIY objection, and there's a little bit more next. Okay, so brand in your company. Now, level 4 is a really fun one that you can do, because level 4 is now why this level of help, right? So this is why not do it on your own. This is why not buy a $7 ebook that explains all of this stuff to you. And like, I know that my life has been changed off of this $7 ebook that I've bought in the past. You can crack some fun jokes. Like, why not go to YouTube University, right? Why not ask AI how to build an AI agency? Like, there's a million things that you can do out there to like try and figure this out on your own for cheaper. Why are you looking for this level of help with this substantial investment, with this level of time, input, and energy into it? Like, why are you looking to do this right the first time as opposed to just like going and trying to figure it out on your own, right? You can seed all of these ideas in this one step inside of discovery. So I won't go into steps 5 and 6 of the 6 levels of confidence because there is more here. It just goes more and more internal, and then that's what leads you into the next part of the call where it's like a little bit more emotional. But this should give you a really good start, right? So at the end of the day, you want to get your prospect to talk about like what hasn't worked. You want them to say in their own words why they want to do this, why they want this level of help, so that by the time you actually present your offer, their brain has already not only accepted, but sold themselves and you on the idea that doing this alone probably isn't the best move, right? This is super duper simple. And anytime that I teach this to somebody, it's so funny because then they never get this objection again. They never get shopping around objections again. There's a lot of things that come that are really, really good from the 6 levels of confidence and from understanding this buying pocket, whether somebody is on the uncertainty side or the overly certain side. So I could give you stories upon stories about this, but I'll just give you one specific example. I taught this to Oscar inside of the Sales Dojo. He's one of the Sales Dojo members. He added this question into his discovery process. And I kid you not, the very next week he came back to me and he was like, I'm not getting any of these objections that I used to get anymore. And ultimately started making a lot more money. I don't remember exactly how much, but objection prevention is a simple skill, but the goal is not to just handle the objections at the end of the call, but it's to position where somebody is going to go down in the path of thinking that they go down, because the further down the path they go, the more likely they are to make a decision that aligns with that path. So if we can set the path in the right direction early in the call, then we're basically just driving this wedge that gets bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the call, so that by the end of the call, there's nothing left for them to do except for to move forward.
Now, if you're a closer who's been in sales for at least a year and your income is still all over the place, if you still lose deals to the same old objections, if you keep hopping from offer to offer, just trying to find one with healthy, consistent, warm lead flow, and that financial pressure at the beginning of every single month never really goes away. And more than anything, what you want is to get off of that hamster wheel for good, to become so skilled at sales that wherever you go, whatever offer you're on, you are able to consistently produce, removing all the anxiety, removing all the stress, able to produce consistent commissions month over month, year over year, without the financial stress, the freedom that you actually got into sales for in the first place. If you're finally ready to take your sales career seriously this year and develop your skill to a point where you never have to worry about money again, click the first link in the description. It's also pinned in the comments. And regardless, I will see you every single day at 5 p.m. Eastern, right after you've taken your calls for the day, with content here that is laser targeted towards making you a closer capable of making $20,000 to $30,000 a month every single month consistently.